Carla had been a wedding photographer for over a decade. She had seen it all: runaway brides, crying grooms, awkward in-laws. But nothing prepared her for the day she discovered the man she loved was living a lie right in front of her lens. Her boyfriend, Dean, was charming, spontaneous, and endlessly supportive of her passion. He'd often help her carry gear, even offer creative input. It was a perfect partnership, or so she thought. One Saturday afternoon, Carla was photographing a high-profile wedding at a luxury vineyard. Everything was running smoothly until the groom walked in with his entourage. Dean was one of them. At first, she thought it was a mistake. Maybe he was just a guest? But Wei stood beside the groom as a groomsman, smiling confidently as if he belonged there. Her hands shook. Her breath caught. She kept snapping photos to mask her trembling, but her mind raced. After the ceremony, she confronted him behind the event hall. He looked surprised, but not guilty. "You weren't supposed to be working this one," he said coolly. "Guess fate had other plans." Carla's voice cracked. "How long have you known her?" Dean shrugged. "A few years. She was just more on my level. You were always too busy chasing dreams." He turned to leave, but Carla wasn't done. Instead of storming out, she returned to the reception, camera in hand. She captured every stolen glance Dean gave the bride, every awkward silence when their eyes met. And when it was time to display a slideshow of the day's highlights, Carla made a last-minute change. The guests gasped. The slideshow flickered from the newlyweds' photos to behind-the-scenes shots Carla had taken of Dean and the bride from previous events. Moments no one else had caught. A hand on her back, a kiss in the corner. Intimate, undeniable proof. The room fell into chaos. The groom stormed out. The bride ran after him. Dean stood frozen, humiliated in front of everyone. Carla packed her gear, calm and collected. She never looked back. And from that day on, every bride who hired her knew one thing: Carla didn't just capture moments. She uncovered the truth. The fallout from the vineyard wedding made headlines in their small city. Carla didn't speak to the press, didn't comment online, and didn't indulge in the dozens of interview requests that came flooding in. She simply kept working, her camera now both a shield and a sword. 2 weeks later, while editing a maternity shoot, she received a knock at her studio door. It was the groom from the ruined wedding, David. His face was tired, but there was no anger in his eyes, only exhaustion. "I just wanted to thank you," he said quietly. "You saved me from making the worst mistake of my life." Carla offered him a seat and a glass of water. He told her how he confronted his now ex-wife and Dean, how they admitted it had been going on for 3 years, how Dean had even encouraged the wedding, thinking they could continue the affair in secret. Sickening. "I feel stupid," David admitted, "but also lucky. I don't know how you held it together that day." Carla gave him a small smile. "I didn't. I just hid behind the lens." They talked for hours that day, about betrayal, about trust, about starting over. David left, but he kept in touch. A message here, a lunch there. Slowly, carefully, a bond formed, not out of pain, but mutual understanding. Meanwhile, Dean tried to spin his side of the story. He messaged Carla a few times, first with apologies and accusations, then begging. She blocked him. He sent a handwritten letter, claiming he'd lost everything and wanted her back. She shredded it. Carla refused to be a fallback. Months passed. Business boomed. Clients admired her not just for her talent, but her integrity. She became a quiet legend in wedding circles, the photographer who exposed a lie and kept her dignity intact. 1 year later, David came to her studio again, this time with a nervous smile and a wrapped box. Inside was a custom camera strap, embossed with the words, "Truth, always," and beside it a note, "You uncovered mine. Let's start capturing something real." This time, Carla didn't hide behind the lens. She smiled and stepped into the frame. Carla and David didn't rush things. They were both healing, both cautious, but the connection was undeniable. They'd meet up for coffee after shoots, exchange book recommendations, and sometimes just sit in silence, letting presence speak louder than words. For the first time in years, Carla didn't feel like she had to perform. She just had to be. Still, the shadows of the past occasionally crept in. One evening, as they walked through the city square lit by soft golden lights, David hesitated before speaking. Did you ever wonder if they really loved us? Or if we were just the safest options? Carla sighed. All the time, but I stopped looking for answers that won't change the outcome. Some people love selfishly. They only give when it benefits them. David nodded, the answer settling between them like autumn leaves. Then came a twist no one saw coming. Carla received a call from a new client, a young woman named Jenna, planning a quiet countryside wedding. She sounded nervous but polite, and insisted Carla was the only one she trusted. The venue? Coincidentally, the same vineyard where everything had exploded a year ago. Something felt off, but Carla accepted. Curiosity tugged at her gut. When she arrived on a wedding day, she immediately spotted Dean, standing off to the side, dressed in a sharp tuxedo, wearing a look that hovered between smug and sheepish. He wasn't the groom. He was the best man. Carla's chest tightened, but her hands didn't shake this time. She picked up her camera and got to work like a professional. After the ceremony, Dean approached her during cocktail hour, his voice low and laced with regret. "Still the best in the business, I see," he said. "I tried to book someone else, but Jenna insisted on you. Guess you wanted a bit of poetic justice." Carla met his eyes coolly. Or maybe she wanted someone who sees the truth before it's too late. He blinked. "Carla, listen. I've changed. I lost everything. And I think about you every day." She let out a breath of amusement. "You didn't lose me, Dean. You threw me away for convenience." He looked like he wanted to argue, but she raised her camera, cutting him off. "Smile. Let's capture your second chance. Hopefully, you don't waste this one." That night, she returned home to David, who was waiting with a homemade dinner and a smile that reached his eyes. They talked, laughed, and danced barefoot in the kitchen. Carla no longer needed closure. She had something better. Clarity, and a future built not on secrets, but on truth. That a few weeks after the wedding, Carla received an envelope in the mail. No return address, no name. Inside was a photo, one she hadn't taken. It showed Jenna, the bride, sitting on a bench, visibly pregnant. Standing beside her was Dean. His hand was resting protectively on her shoulder. The timestamp in the corner was from over a year ago. Carla's stomach dropped. It wasn't just a coincidence that Jenna had chosen her. It was a message. Later that evening, curiosity gnawed at Carla. She dialed Jenna's number, unsure what she'd even say. To her surprise, Jenna picked up on the first ring. "I wonder when you'd call," Jenna said calmly. Carla's voice was careful. "Why did you hire me, really?" Jenna hesitated, then answered with honesty sharp enough to cut. "Because I wanted you to see what kind of man Dean really is. What he left you for. What he left me for, too." Carla sat down slowly. "He left you? 5 months into the pregnancy," Jenna said bitterly. "Told me I was draining his energy. Said he needed someone who understood his vision." There was a long silence. Then Jenna added, "I knew your name. I remembered the vineyard disaster. I needed you there, not for revenge, but to remind myself I wasn't the only one fooled by his charm. You were his mirror. If you could survive it, maybe I could too." Carla swallowed hard. She hadn't expected that. She thought Jenna might have been spiteful or vindictive. But instead, she found someone just as broken, just as used. "Are you okay now?" Carla asked quietly. "I am," Jenna said. "I'm raising my daughter alone, and I'm free." They talked for nearly an hour, two strangers bound by a shared wreckage. When they finally hung up, Carla sat by the window, watching the stars settle into the dark sky. Her thoughts drifted to David, to the steady warmth he brought into her life, so unlike the wildfire Dean had once been. Later that night, as David wrapped his arms around her, Carla whispered something she hadn't said to anyone in years. "I think I'm finally ready." David looked at her, smiling gently. "Ready for what?" Carla smiled back. "To stop surviving and start living." Spring arrived early that year, bringing soft breezes and new beginnings. Carla was booked solid. Weddings, engagements, even her first editorial shoot for a bridal magazine. Life was finally moving forward. Yet something tugged at her. Jenna's voice, her strength, her resilience. Carla couldn't stop thinking about her. One morning, while sorting through submissions for a charity photography exhibit she'd been curating, an email popped up with the subject line. Entry. Motherhood Unfiltered. It was from Jenna. Attached were black and white self-portraits. Raw, unposed images of Jenna holding her baby girl. Some showed her exhausted, her hair tangled, eyes heavy. Others glowed with quiet joy as her daughter giggled on her lap. Each image was powerful, aching, honest. Carla stared at the screen for a long time before replying. These are extraordinary. I want to showcase them front and center. Will you let me? Jenna agreed when the exhibit opened 2 weeks later. Jenna stood in the back, holding her daughter on her hip. She wore no makeup, no mask, just truth. The crowd lingered longest at her section, moved by the brutal beauty of her images. A woman beside Carla whispered, "Whoever she is, she's brave." Carla smiled. "Yeah, she is." As the evening wound down, Jenna approached Carla. "You did this," she said. "You gave me the courage to show up as I am. Not as someone broken, but someone building again." Carla blinked back tears. "No, Jenna, you did this. I just made room for your voice." From that night on, they kept in touch, collaborating on projects that gave voice to women like them. Women who had loved recklessly, lost deeply, and rebuilt quietly. Their bond wasn't rooted in pain anymore, but purpose. Meanwhile, David's tech star began to take off. One night, as they walked home from a launch event, hand in hand, he turned to her and said, "You become someone I'm proud to stand beside. Not because of your strength, but your softness. You let light in again." She paused, heartful. "You helped me believe it was safe to." That weekend, David took her back to Vineyard, not for a wedding, but a picnic. As the sun dipped below the hills, he pulled out a small velvet box. No big speeches, no overdone gestures, just one simple question. "Will you build something real with me?" Carla didn't hesitate. "Yes, with everything I am."